Why does it so often seem that the worst people rise to the highest places? Why do the cruel, the selfish, the deceitful, those who abandon integrity in favor of domination, seem to float upward in systems of power? Friedrich Nietzsche saw this pattern not as a failure of the world, but as a feature of it, and perhaps most disturbingly, as a mirror held up to our values, our fears, our institutions, and to human nature itself. This is a journey into power, not political power alone, but psychological, existential power. We will walk through Nietzsche's ideas, his notions of the will to power, the lies we call morality, the illusions of truth, and why systems reward those who play a darker game. But this is not a video about cynicism. It's about clarity. And in that clarity, perhaps we will find something deeper than despair, something like freedom. Friedrich Nietzsche did not trust idealism. He believed that beneath every lofty moral system, beneath every pure-sounding institution, beneath every smiling face of public goodness, there was something else, a striving, a struggle, a will. Nietzsche called it the will to power, not necessarily the will to control others, but the deep inner force that wants to assert, create, overcome, express. And when that force is suppressed, when it is denied, hidden, or repressed, it twists. It becomes resentment. It becomes moral posturing. It becomes hunger for control in the name of virtue. He believed humans were not at core moral creatures. We were forces. We were potential. We were will. And to deny that will, to pretend we are purely good, selfless beings, is to lie. Worse, it's to make ourselves vulnerable to those who do not lie. In On the Genealogy of Morality, Nietzsche presents a devastating argument. He says that our modern concepts of good and evil were not born from universal truth, but from psychological revenge. According to Nietzsche, the powerful ancient nobles, strong, creative, self-assured, called themselves good simply because they could. Good meant powerful, radiant, alive, self-creating. And what did they call the weak? They didn't even call them evil. They were merely common. But the weak, the ones without power, they watched with envy. And over time, Nietzsche says they inverted the meaning of morality. They called the strong evil and their own weakness good. Compassion became the highest value, not because it was virtuous, but because it gave the powerless moral leverage. This Nietzsche called slave morality, and it survives to this day whenever people moralize from a place of resentment, using guilt, shame, or outrage to punish those who live freely and with power. Now imagine a world where power is veiled in morality, where those who ascend do not proclaim their hunger, but cloak it in noble-sounding causes, where leaders do not say, "I want to dominate," but rather, "I'm doing this for your own good." This is the world Nietzsche saw coming, and he warned that those most skilled in deception, especially self-deception, would rise. Because to rise in such a system, you must know how to perform virtue while pursuing your own will. You must hide your hunger beneath kindness. You must twist truth to fit your narrative. You must manipulate with a smile. And so the worst people rise, not because the world is broken, but because it rewards those who can weaponize morality without believing in it. Nietzsche believed that human beings are not just individuals, they are herd animals. And this herd instinct, this deep need to belong, to conform, to feel safe in numbers, shapes much of our thinking and behavior. It's not that we love the truth, we love agreement. We seek safety in shared opinions, shared outrage, shared enemies. To be accepted by the herd often means giving up your individuality. You must think like the group, feel like the group, react like the group. Nietzsche saw this as dangerous, because the more people conform to the herd, the more suspicious they become of those who do not. And so, those who live authentically, who question the group's values, who speak uncomfortable truths, who refuse to lie just to belong, are punished. Not because they are wrong, but because they threaten the unity of the herd. Nietzsche did not believe that human beings are committed to truth. In fact, he wrote, What then is truth? A mobile army of metaphors. We don't seek truth, we seek comfort, we seek power. Truth becomes whatever preserves the herd, whatever protects the system. And so, those who question dominant narratives, even if they are right, are seen as dangerous. The system has no incentive to uplift the honest, only the useful. This is how people rise to power, not by revealing the truth, but by manipulating it. They tell people what they want to hear, they manufacture enemies. They perform virtue and righteousness to cover self-interest. The better they are at lying, especially to themselves, the more convincing they become. Nietzsche warned of the rise of soft psychological tyranny, not through physical domination, but through moral guilt. He saw this happening in institutions, religion, politics, education, where resentment becomes institutionalized. The weak do not seize power directly. They moralize their weakness until it becomes a virtue. They claim the right to rule, not because they are capable, but because they are victims. They do not destroy their enemies with swords, but with shame. And in this kind of system, the worst people rise, not the strong, but those who know how to wield guilt like a weapon. Those who manipulate compassion, those who cry injustice to gain control, those who perform suffering to extract loyalty. This is a tyranny of the subtle kind, a dictatorship of morality. To Nietzsche, morality as we know it is often a tool of control. It teaches obedience, not depth. It favors conformity, not creativity. Those who seek truth, real truth, must be willing to go beyond good and evil. This doesn't mean becoming cruel. It means seeing through the illusions. It means recognizing that what we call virtue is often cowardice, that what we call evil is sometimes simply power we don't like, and that rising to the top often requires not goodness, but mastery of appearance. To live authentically in a world built on illusions is to walk a dangerous path, but it is also the only path toward becoming what Nietzsche called the Übermensch, the higher self. One who creates their own values, one who lives without masks, one who is not afraid of who they truly are. At the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy lies one of his most misunderstood ideas, the Übermensch, or overman. The Übermensch is not a tyrant, not a dictator, not someone who rises to power by dominating others. The Übermensch is someone who rises above the need to dominate at all. Someone who no longer plays the game of herd morality, who no longer seeks validation from the crowd. The Übermensch is free, not because the world has changed, but because he has. He has looked into the abyss, seen the emptiness of borrowed values, and chosen to build his own. To Nietzsche, this was the greatest victory, to say yes to life, without illusions, without comforting lies, without relying on external praise or condemnation. And it is precisely because the world rewards conformity that the path to becoming an Übermensch is so rare. It requires strength of spirit, independence of mind, and above all, the courage to be alone. Why is it that when someone truly lives authentically, they are often rejected, dismissed, even hated? Nietzsche saw that societies, institutions, and power structures do not reward originality. They punish it. Authenticity is threatening because it cannot be controlled. It breaks rules. It exposes lies. It refuses to perform. An authentic person is like a mirror held up to the face of the herd. And what it reflects is uncomfortable. So the herd attacks, not to destroy the person, but to restore its own comfort. That is why the worst people, those who have no authentic self, only ambition, often rise. They are safe. They are predictable. They will never disturb the illusion, but the truly free soul, they are dangerous. Not because they wish to harm, but because they cannot be bought. Nietzsche did not believe in mass education, at least not as it was practiced. He saw it not as a path to awakening, but as a system designed to dull the sharp edges of the mind. To Nietzsche, education often served the herd. It taught obedience, repetition, memorization of truths, that were never questioned. In his words, the surest way to corrupt a youth is to instruct him to hold in higher esteem those who think alike than those who think differently. The system does not want free thinkers. It wants loyal workers, silent cogs, moral conformists, and so those with fire, with vision, with originality, are reshaped to fit in, or they are discarded. In this way, the system ensures that only the safest, often the most mediocre, rise to positions of influence, not because they are great, but because they are compliant. And yet, Nietzsche was not a nihilist. He did not say, give up. The world is corrupt. He said, become who you are. Even if it costs you everything, do not wait for permission to live authentically. Do not expect the world to applaud when you refuse to lie, and do not be surprised when those who play the game better rise above you. But still live truthfully. Still create your own values. Still refuse to submit to mediocrity, even when it's rewarded. Because in a world where the worst people rise to the top, the greatest act of rebellion is to remain fully yourself. This is not a philosophy for comfort. It's a philosophy for the brave. Nietzsche saw it before most did. The future would not be ruled by tyrants in armor, but by invisible forces, mass psychology, media, and ideology. He anticipated a world where people no longer think for themselves, but are thought through by the systems around them. A world where language is weaponized, where outrage is currency, where identity is marketed, and truth is negotiated like a contract. In such a world, the most dangerous people are not those with weapons, but those who know how to shape the narrative. Control becomes subtle, so subtle, you don't even know it's there. And those who rise to the top are often those who master this subtlety, who manipulate image, outrage, and moral panic to gain followers and power. In Nietzsche's terms, the last men, those who want only comfort and safety, will welcome these rulers, even as they surrender their minds. To Nietzsche, the rise of the worst was not just political, it was psychological. He introduced the idea of master morality versus slave morality. Master morality is rooted in self-determination. It values strength, creativity, vitality. Slave morality, on the other hand, is born from weakness and resentment. It flips the moral scale, calling the strong evil and the weak good. Why? Because if you cannot rise by merit, you can rise by moralizing your suffering. You can gain power, not by building, but by accusing, not by ascending, but by tearing others down. This is why slave morality dominates modern culture. It is more persuasive, more viral, more useful for those who cannot face themselves honestly, and it becomes institutionalized in politics, in religion, in media. The result? A world where those who are most deceptive, most manipulative, most afraid of the truth, are promoted as heroes. And yet Nietzsche did not give in to despair. He didn't preach isolation, bitterness, or withdrawal. Instead, he challenged you. Live with strength in a weak world. He knew you would be outnumbered. He knew authenticity would cost you comfort, perhaps even success. But he also knew that a life of truth, even if rejected, is more meaningful than a life of lies rewarded. To live with integrity means to create your own values, not inherit them blindly. To pursue truth, even when it isolates you. To see manipulation and refuse to participate in it. To act from depth, not performance, and above all, to become resilient, so that your value is not dependent on recognition from the world. You must learn to stand alone, and in that solitude, to build something real. Nietzsche leaves us with one last haunting idea, the eternal recurrence. He writes, "What if a demon crept after you into your loneliest loneliness and said to you, 'This life as you now live it, and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more. Would you not throw yourself down and gnash your teeth? This is the final test of your life, If you had to live your life over exactly as it is, forever, would you say yes? Would you choose your decisions, your actions, your compromises, again and again and again? If the answer is no, then perhaps it's time to start living differently. The eternal recurrence is not a cosmology. It's not about time or physics. It's a mirror, one that shows you whether your life is truly your own. Because in a world where the worst people often rise to the top, the only power that matters is the power to choose yourself. That is the truth Nietzsche offers, a life that may be hard, but never fake. A life that may not rise to the top, but never bows to a lie.